What's poppin', people? It's Dante, currently walking through the streets of Shinjuku, Tokyo, Japan. And yeah, I make videos for photographers who are aspiring to find more joy in their lives and meaning in the process of photography. Using video as a way to just kind of write out loud ideas and notes. It's interesting to treat video this way. It's like video journal. Whoa, look at this little scene here. Today's a wandering day. Look at the cigarettes inside of the thing. Yes, so the idea with my trip here in Tokyo is all about pushing myself to make a lot of photos. You know, I think that's like the name of this thing. It's like just make lots of pictures, photograph everything. Oh, look at the face actually on that newspaper. Let me try to get that. And so I kind of want to speak out loud about my process here in Tokyo. I want to speak about like exactly how I've been shooting, exactly where I've been shooting, and like what my route has been, like what route am I taking, how am I navigating the streets of Tokyo, you know, what train do I take, like what's my camera setup like. I kind of want to just break down a lot of different things that I've been doing because today is day 8. Yeah, I've done a solid 7-day sprint so far, and we had really beautiful light, and now the light, it seems to maybe be going away for the rest of the trip. I might have cloudy days, which is fine, but yeah, I've been really chasing the light here. And so I'm staying in a hotel in Shin-Okubo in Shinjuku. And so yeah, it's like maybe 2 blocks down that way, and I walk through Shinjuku into Kabuchiko, which is now coming up somewhere soon, and I don't know, I might already be in there. And then I navigate towards the Shinjuku station, which is this hub of so much energy and so much chaos, and there's so many people around this area. And so what I do is every single day I wander through Shin-Okubo, go through the little alleyways, you know, look at the little details. I drink a coffee from the vending machine, and I'll photograph, you know, the buildings, the textures, like different things that I find in the alleys. And then I navigate through Kabuchiko. I go through and start to photograph people on the street, moving towards Shinjuku station, where I really hone in on photographing the people and the flow of traffic at this particular station. And then from there, I'll hop on the train, typically after a few hours. So from sunrise till around noon, I'll spend my day in Shinjuku. And then from Shinjuku station, I'll take the train to Harajuku. And then from Harajuku, I'll walk around Yoyogi Park, where I can go for a nature hike, and I can go for a nice little leisurely stroll through the park to decompress after photographing with intensity in the streets of Shinjuku. And then from there, I'll go down to Takeshita Street, and Takeshita Street is in Harajuku, and it's this very densely populated and packed part of Harajuku where many people are sort of just like funneled through this one street. And it's extremely good for street photography, very much fashionable people, lots of families, lots of different people gathering. And so you get the contrast from Shinjuku Station, where there's lots of salarymen, lots of students, lots of people going to work and coming off of the train station, as opposed to then moving through Harajuku, where it's very much more fashionable, families, people shopping, and the light on this strip is incredible. Think of like a runway. It's basically like a runway of people walking towards you, and it's an ever-flowing, there's just like so many people there, and there's so much traffic. And so from that street, navigating down Harajuku, I try to aim to arrive at Shibuya crossing around, I'd say 1:30-ish. Like around 1:30, 2 o'clock, where the light is just right on that corner and the energy is perfect. And then from that time around 3:30, yeah, I'll just pretty much milk that scene until the light fades away. And that's what I've been doing consistently. And then from there, I'll go and I'll eat around 3:30, 4 p.m. at the all-you-can-eat yakiniku charcoal grilled meat place, which is fantastic, and just like all you can eat for like 25 USD. And yeah, just break my fast from the day and just feast on meat. And so yeah, that's pretty much what I do. on a day-to-day. Like, that's my workflow, that's how I operate. And then from there I'll go and I'll shoot at night. So like yesterday after eating, I shot around the Shibuya crossing at nighttime, which is just like, this is pretty much like, I think this has to be like one of the most densely packed, most populated places in the world, because I believe that Japan, or Tokyo specifically, is like the most densely populated city in the world. And then being at Shibuya crossing, it's like the most densely populated place on the planet. So for street photography, it's pretty much the absolute best location. Probably should have moved to the right to separate her from the street, maybe, or I don't know. And so that's what I've been following for pretty much like 5 days straight. I'd say the first 2 days I was trying to get my bearings straight, but pretty much all week I hammered the same routine, the same disciplined walk, the same route every single day. And because I've remained very true to this route, very strict and very disciplined to returning to the same street, returning to the same locations over and over again, I've essentially honed in on the most critical component that a street photographer must possess, which is pattern recognition. So I understood when I must be at a particular place at a particular time of the day to understand when I'm going to have the most foot traffic in relationship to the light, and at what time the light casts upon the particular spot that I'm shooting. For instance, Shibuya Crossing, Harajuku, and of course Shinjuku Station. And so these three locations have been critical in my routine, and understanding where I must be at what time of the day has been allowing me to photograph in a fluid and sort of flow state, where I think when you travel to a new place, there's so many different places you can go, there's so much novelty, etc., etc. You want to just wander, explore, I get that. But with street photography, I think it's important to eliminate decision fatigue, and just sort of staying tried and true to a route and sticking to it has really helped me on this journey, where I don't have to check the map, I don't have to think about where I'm going, I don't have all this decision fatigue on where I go next. And it really has simplified the process for me, where essentially I wake up and I know where I have to be, I know where I'm going, and then when I need to take a train to get to Harajuku from Shinjuku, it's so simple. You just take one train, you know where it is, boom, you get on, boom, you come home on the same one, and like everything's like clockwork. You're not like scattering around and, you know, wasting time, right? So that's the critical thing. It's like, I want to eliminate distractions. I want zero distractions with my process so that I can stay laser focused. And then in terms of the technical side of things, I'm using the Ricoh GR3X on the neck, and the Ricoh GR3 is in the pocket. And so I'll typically have the Ricoh GR3 set on my wrist. And then what I've particularly been doing is I'll go from shooting these like very wide scenes, layered photos, dynamic compositions with the 28mm, to then transitioning to the GR3X using the 71mm crop mode built into the camera. And so I've been photographing these like slivers of people's faces as they come into the light, and as I'm photographing, I'm making this like cognizant decision in my head of whether or not I want to photograph the scene or I want to photograph the detail. And so I'll alternate between the two camera systems very fluidly and quickly. And specifically, this technique has been best at locations such as Shinjuku Station, where people are coming out of the light, so that I can crush the shadows and expose for the highlights and have the faces almost look like Caravaggio paintings, or sort of like woodblock Japanese prints, and the etchings of the faces using light has been a way for me to abstract the world. And I'm starting to push myself creatively by making myself shoot in a very entirely different way. So I came about this like process very naturally through the first day I arrived here in Shinjuku. I went to Shinjuku Station, I noticed how great the light is, and I made this one frame where I saw this like sliver of light reveal the lips of a woman, and I just saw this like dynamic of the light and the people, and I thought, wow, I need to follow that and try that again. And so I kept going back and trying it again. And what I realized is, when you're in a location like Shinjuku or Shibuya Crossing, where there's just so much chaos, there's so many people, it's very difficult to isolate the subject from the background. It's very difficult to isolate something interesting from the chaos of the crowd. And the order and the goal of the photographer is to merely put order to chaos, is to make sense of things, to articulate the unknown and put order to it in our frames, right? And so essentially I've come to the conclusion that using the crop mode in the camera, it was a way for me to solve that sort of visual problem. And so I think of photography as visual problem solving, where yeah, essentially it's like solving a visual puzzle. You know, the goal of the photographer as well, and what you're responsible for, is where you position your physical body in relationship to the subject, the background, and when you click the shutter. And so essentially by using the crop mode and using this very tight focal length of 71 millimeters, it's allowing me to isolate the subjects from the background very seamlessly in these chaotic environments. And then the other thing I thought about as I was photographing into the nighttime was, not only are we responsible for where we position ourselves in relationship to the subject in the background and when we click the shutter, but we're also responsible for how we operate the camera and what we actually set our shutter as, right? And so I started to experiment with slow shutter speeds, using 1/4 of a second at nighttime, and basically holding my camera very still, using the built-in stabilization of the Ricoh is fantastic at nighttime, to then isolate a subject from the background, from the crowd of the people moving in and out that is stationary, in relationship to the people that are moving throughout the frame, to create a slow shutter speed effect and a more ethereal frame that elevates the mundane to something extraordinary. And so my goal with this new practice is to use these different techniques and use this different process to create a new world in a fraction of a second. And to me, that's the power of photography, going beyond documentary. You know, as a street photographer, I'm working in embodied reality, I'm photographing life as it is. But the goal for me going forward is to photograph what life could be, you know, and through black and white photography, I'm creating natural abstractions of reality. And so I'm looking at the world and photographing what it is. But when I open up this new possibility of using a Ricoh GR with high contrast black and white, cranking the contrast to the max, cranking the grit, the grain, and everything in camera with a small JPEG file, using highlight weighted metering mode, using automatic settings for the most part, to then expose for the highlights and crush the shadows. A lot of the times, you know, and I'm photographing with the LCD screen, photographing loosely, sometimes not looking. A lot of the times what I see isn't necessarily what I get, but what I get in the photograph is what I didn't see. Right? It's almost like I'm looking beyond the veil, and those surprises and the spontaneous things that arise in my frames, these kind of things, I think that's the magic of this kind of game of street photography, of embracing the spontaneity, embracing the unpredictability, embracing the chaos head first, the unknown, and then allowing the chips to fall as they may, allowing that sort of removal of control to sort of flow through you as you're on the streets, and to allow that sort of chaotic frenzy that you enter when you're in the flow state to sort of propel yourself to make mistakes. And so through making mistakes and actually making these like little stumbling imperfections with my frames, like for instance with the light and shadow play, I noticed this thing, and then I started to, what I did was I was trying to find patches of light, like particularly in the Shibuya crossing, to photograph people in the light. But then I was actually using my camera, and I have the crop mode set to my video button on the side of the camera, and I accidentally clicked it in. And I didn't intentionally start doing this. This is the other funny thing, is I accidentally had the crop mode on the camera just like by accident, and I was making pictures and I was like, whoa, why is it so tight? Because I looked at the photos on the screen, and then I was like, yo, this is kind of sick, and I just started doing it. And so I set my camera with 71 millimeter crop, snap focus 1 meter, f/16, and then I would just go in and like I put the shutter speed at like 1/1000th of a second, 1/2000th of a second, and I just go in and I started making these pictures for like a couple days straight. Shout out to Marcus. This dude Marcus was on the corner. He was like some American guy, I think I think it was from America, maybe Canada, and he was shooting street photography, and I was like, yo, I'm shooting with the 71 millimeters on my Ricoh. I was like talking to him about it. I was like, this is kind of crazy, bro. This is so awesome. It was like his last day in Shibuya, and we were shooting together a little bit. Such a great place for street photography. And then yeah, so those are some of the technical things. Okay, and then the one time I was shooting with the AV mode at night, and my AV mode is set to a minimum shutter speed of 1/500th of a second with the Ricoh GR3, and that's just how I typically shoot. And so I was trying to make a layered frame of people moving in and out of the train station, and I had my camera set, and I didn't really think about the settings. And because it was low light, the shutter dropped to like 1/15th of a second, and I noticed how the silhouettes were blurred in my frame. And after I made that slight mistake, it really wasn't too much of a mistake, but it was a little imperfection that I then pushed myself to intentionally utilize in my photography by dropping to 1/4 of a second and then experimenting with slow shutter speeds for the next couple of days straight. And so I've been having a creative breakthrough on this trip of experimentation and pushing myself through making mistakes, through embracing imperfection, and then finding perfection in the craft of like intentionally utilizing these techniques, intentionally going out there with repetition to the same places, to the same streets, understanding the light, understanding the traffic, and understanding where I must be in relationship to all of these things, and then making the effort to photograph with volume, with intensity, with consistency, and to like really push myself to maximize the quantity in order to find the quality. And so essentially with the slow shutter speed effect, the third day I started trying it, boom, it manifested. I made the photo I was looking for. And then after a couple of days of shooting with the tight croppings, just yesterday, boom, I made the one that I was looking for. I have this frame of this cropping of a man's face in relationship to this woman's eye that's revealed in the bottom of the frame, which I was trying to achieve with this kind of effect of cropping in on the faces and slivers of light. And now we don't have any more light, and it's like, wow, my ideas came into fruition by practicing with repetition and just like putting in the reps each and every day. And yeah, the fun part is the process becomes addictive, and when you find this obsession and you just run with it and you keep going at it, it's just so rewarding, because over time, compounding that sort of like volume of making more photos, you will find the results you're looking for. But it becomes this game of simultaneously pushing yourself as much as possible to make great photos, while at the same time being detached from the outcome itself. And so my mindset is very much loose, and I'm not expecting anything. I'm kind of trying to forget everything I think I know about photography, about what I'm doing, so that when I'm out on the streets, I enter the flow state of production, of clicking that damn shutter more and sort of letting go of the external validation of the photographs I make, letting go of the outcome of whether my photos are going to be good or bad, or whether I'm making something great. It kind of goes to the wayside, and I don't really consider this. I kind of just allow myself to photograph in the spirit of play, which I believe goes a long way with this kind of game of practicing street photography, where you don't want to take it so seriously, but once you find something that's like you're just like obsessed by, like for me it was like the crop mode, and like I just became absolutely enamored by and obsessed by this. Start to take it seriously in a sense where you start to intentionally do this thing with consistency, right? So I just went out over and over again trying this new technique, and it paid off, honestly. And so now for the remainder of the trip, for the next week, I'll basically just kind of, I mean, I'll likely, you know, follow my own rhythm now, because I don't know if we have the light. And so a lot of what I do is like I use the light as my compass, and I kind of just follow that light, and then I understand where I must be at what time and where to go. But now I think I might just let go and go with the flow more, and try to just like, you know, make different kind of pictures, maybe not even pictures of people, whatever. Of course, always like humanity is my interest, but yeah, I think actually Tokyo is like the perfect place to just wander, where you really don't need any plans. You don't really need many like preconceived ideas of what you're gonna find or what you're kind of like doing, which is just really nice to be in a city like this where you can kind of just explore openly. Oh yeah, the other cool thing is these coffee machines, or these like vending machines, they give you a hot, like this is a hot coffee. So I say skip the coffee shops. Don't even go to a coffee shop. Just, I don't know, the best one is the espresso blend. This is the Georgia one. I think the Georgia one is better than the platinum black. I mean, oh no, that's Georgia too. Wait, what? I don't know what the difference is, but they're all good. The espresso blend one is the best. This one's different, but like, oh, it's so warm, and it's like in this aluminum thing, and it's, oh, it feels so good because it's like chilly outside. November 23rd, I think it is today. I don't know. Really great weather. I mean, I have a light coat on. I've got the Uniqlo. I'm wearing Uniqlo Heat Tech shirt. So I got a Uniqlo just like sports tee underneath, and then I got the Uniqlo Heat Tech long sleeve, like the maximum heat one, like the best one, as the layer. And then I have this like light Lululemon like just like lightweight jacket, And then I have the Heat Tech Lululemon or Uniqlo Heat Tech legging kind of like tight like pant things, which are really good. And then I'm wearing the Vivo Barefoot Primus Light for all-weather shoes. And so I've been wearing the barefoot shoes for the past 3 years straight, typically the Vibram 5-finger IIIX version. But I went with these shoes for this trip because it's a little bit chillier. These are a lot warmer. I'm actually not even wearing socks with them, and they're great. And you get the same kind of ground feel. Your toes get splayed out. See, it's like a wide toe box. And then the reason why I like wearing long sleeve, or the reason why I like wearing barefoot shoes is firstly physiologically and physically. They make you stronger. Your feet become stronger, your calves, your legs, your posture, your back, your spine. It removes any plantar fasciitis from your feet. It really does strengthen your physical body. But then there's something about the sensation of feeling the ground beneath your feet and actually slowing down and allowing the sights and the sounds and the smells and the feeling of the street carry you. It's a very meditative way to walk, I think, with these kind of barefoot shoes, and I really encourage you to try them out. Maybe Vivo Barefoot is a good option for photographers because a lot of people aren't really comfortable wearing the finger shoes, but I highly recommend, if you're a street photographer, obviously you are watching this, pick up a pair of these like Vivo Barefoot shoes. They're fucking great, man. I mean, these are the only ones I tried, but they're really good. I definitely recommend them for any street photographer out there. They're really critical because, with photography, it's very simple. You have to walk more, right? And so, yeah, the feet and the sort of shoes and gear that we wear, it does impact our work in a way. And, I think about photography in relationship to weightlifting and, this notion of hypertrophy, of like increasing your muscle mass, and autophagy of, essentially having these small micro tears, in your muscles as you're lifting heavier weights each day and going out there with consistency into the gym and making more reps each day, increasing the weight each day. And then through that pain and through those micro tears and fibers sort of changing in your physical body, your muscles enlarge and grow and you become stronger. And so with photography, it's the same thing. You want to go out there and make more pictures. You want to hit the gym more. You want to be on the streets. This is our arena. Conquer the world through photography. And I think when you're on the streets and you're walking barefoot and you're slowly observing, to me the beauty is entering the flow state, and it becomes very meditative. So we have a past, we have a future, right? But these things are of our concern. Our concern is being curious, right? That's our main concern, and just being grateful and being present for the moment itself, because the ultimate gift in life is the present, right? That's the irony. And so when you're walking and you're moving your physical body and you're photographing, you exist outside the passage of time. And I think that the ultimate privilege in this modern world is to simply be outside, to be under the sun, to observe life, to photograph, to wander, to explore. And then through that act of wandering and through the art of exploration and being out in the world and photographing, you forget that time even exists, and you continuously just photograph from that sort of state of bliss, that sort of joyful state of being. And so there's meaning to be found in this process of walking and just like being in the moment and observing. And so I say go slow. Let life flow towards you, and then you're just there and you're prepared with your camera, ready to press the shutter when something piques your curiosity. You don't have to force or plan anything. And then when you're making pictures, just treat it like a visual diary of your day. Just make snapshots throughout your everyday life and don't take it so seriously. And then through that sort of act of just like spontaneously photographing with curiosity at the forefront, yeah, the photographs that you make become the most authentic expression of your voice as an artist. And so, yeah, I think that I think it's time to wander. Just treat yourself like the ultimate flaneur, just somebody who likes to go out and explore and see the world. Simple. Make pictures of pictures. Check it out. Yeah, I like making pictures of pictures, the posters on the wall, the infrastructure, the buildings, the people, the faces, everything in between. And trying to go limitless with my photography, trying to expand my horizons of what I deem to be photographable. Because honestly, everything is photographable when you have that inner state of childlike curiosity. You know, think of a child waking up in the morning, just eager to catch the sunrise each day. To me, that's my ultimate goal in life, is to just have the enthusiasm for the day, to wake up and to have that spirit of play and enthusiasm to catch the sun's rays, to wake up and to continuously walk beyond the horizon into the unknown. That's the goal. That's where I want to be, just waking up with infinite curiosity, where there's infinite potential and infinite growth that a child must undergo of transformation and change. There's so many new things to learn. But as we get older and as we start to become burdened by societal norms and expectations, we become a cog, we become a machine. But I say, don't allow the modern world to bog you down. Don't allow the modern world to tame your inner beast. You know, I think it's important to wield that inner beast, that inner sort of chaotic frenzy. You know, Friedrich Nietzsche's famous idea, Rausch, that sort of ecstatic frenzy that you embark on when you're on the streets. And I think it becomes this process of making things and making art from a state of thumos, of spiritedness, where you go full force with vitality. And through that vitality, you find clarity. You know, but the problem with the modern world is there's so much junk in our food. There's so many things that are distracting. There's so much doom and gloom in the news. And so the goal is to remain focused. The goal is to remain in that sort of state of production with vitality at the forefront, simply waking up with enthusiasm for the day. You know, when you look at the word enthusiasm, it derives from theos, meaning God, to be possessed by God. Right? So we want to be possessed by God when we're on the streets. You know, I think it's a fool's game to look and wait and seek sort of inspiration or motivation. You know, motivation, it's merely in your legs. Movere, meaning to move. It's the movement of your physical body through the world. That's what motivation is. It's movement. And so with inspiration, it's all around you. You just have to be open and receptive and feel rather than think. And so don't think, just shoot, right? Just follow your heart, follow your thumos. Look at this alleyway, this is sick. This is sick, look at this. Dude, people are still drinking. Like, did they go to bed, bro? This is like a bar, bro. It's like fucking 10 a.m. Dude, there's people partying at 10 a.m. right now on a Sunday. This is crazy. Where's the church? Where's the church? Hey, Baltimore. Now, your body is the temple. Truly, I think fasting gets you closer to God, and fasting, just people singing. Yeah, fasting, I think fasting makes you more clairvoyant. When you're fasted and you have no digestion in your body, in your gut, and you consider the vagus nerve that's connected from your gut to your brain and the information that travels throughout your physical body, by not digesting things in your stomach, by allowing your body to be in a fasted state, I believe it increases our ability for pattern recognition. It heightens our instincts, our intuition, and that's our most critical thing that we want to sort of focus on as photographers, is our intuition and photographing from our gut. And so I say, empty your gut. I say photograph from that state of emptiness of your physical body and of your mind, right? Forget everything you think you know. You know nothing. We think we know everything because we have ChatGPT in our pocket. But I say, let the Tower of Babel fall, sit back and return to the garden. Put the fruit on the tree. You know, just stop thinking. You think you know everything? You think you photographed everything? Bro, you don't know shit. And so there's really something to be said about photography as this superpower. You know, where I wield my camera as a sword, striking through the heart of chaos, reflecting the soul of the street, creating visual order and harmony throughout the spontaneity of everyday life. You know, and my goal is to reflect my soul in the photographs. As much as I'm photographing the soul of the street, I want the internal state of my soul to reflect in the things that I make. You know, so I'm tapping into the internal state. I'm tapping into the reason why I photograph. I'm tapping into that sort of internal dialogue inside of me, you know, honoring the divine. You know, I think that's the goal, is to transcend the material world through the creation of art. You know, think of any of the greatest art that's been produced. You know, think of the cathedrals, think of the beautiful sculptures in Rome. You know, all of these great and grander structures and things have been, you know, these like great feats for humanity. Like, you know, despite being bound by gravity, despite being these imperfect flesh creatures that cut, that bleed, that feel sorrow, pain, and greed, that lust for the flesh of others, and that will and must die. At one point in time, we've created these magnificent cathedrals and sculptures to honor the divine, to sort of make something that exists outside the passage of time, that will outlive us. And so maybe, just maybe, through the act of making a photograph, we can live forever. You know, our soul can live on forever. You know, consider the soul as immortal. Consider the photographs you make as a direct reflection of your soul, a piece of your soul that will live on. You know, I think that's interesting. You can't live forever, but at least you can make a photograph. I'm gonna keep wandering these alleys. This is freaking awesome. Look at this. Whoa. Let me let her through. Oh, it's just a dude with long hair. Never mind. Yo, this is sick. What?